So, in today's episode, we sit down with the incredible Wendy Ekua Da'Cruz, also known as W.E. Da'Cruz, an award winning entrepreneur, visionary, and food founder. Wendy is the powerhouse behind the VGC Group, a digital solutions company helping businesses scale online, and the Mushroom Angel Company, a plant forward food brand, on a mission to bring innovative, delicious mushroom based products to more tables. So, in our conversation, we're talking about some of her early influences, the courage it takes to build in two different industries, and how she stays grounded in her purpose while navigating the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. Wendy opens up about the mental wellness side of running multiple companies, and she shares her best advice and resources for women who are ready to break into their own lanes as founders. So, if you're ever wondered how to align passion, purpose, and profit while staying rooted in who you are, this episode is for you. Hi, Wendy.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. It's so good to connect with you. I'm so excited to talk to you. Thank you again for doing this.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to lend my voice. Always a pleasure.
So, Wendy and I, we are a part of the same sorority. We've been in the same circle since college, but we never actually connected one on one until now. So, this episode is going to be really great. I'm so honored that you took time out of your busy schedule to do this.
Absolutely. I appreciate the invitation.
And, I love watching you and your family grow online. I always see you and your kids. I feel like the best parts of watching your story is how you bring your children along for the whole ride. And I love just watching you show them, what you do, and they get a front row seat to entrepreneurship. It's really cool to see.
They do. They absolutely do. I look forward to really digging into the foundations of that consciousness and why it's so important that they are very much a part of the journey. You learn very quickly that the journey is the reward and that there's no place to arrive to.
Mhm.
So with that consciousness and that understanding, I make sure that all of what I'm assigned to, motherhood, wifehood, businesshood, that it all happens, in tandem and in harmony with one another. So I'm excited to dig deep into that for sure.
So take us back. What was it like for you growing up, and how did your upbringing shape the woman and entrepreneur that you've become?
Yeah, they always say like, hindsight is 2020. And I look back at the way my sisters and I were raised, I can see early on God planting the seeds on who I was becoming, even at a tender age. So my sisters and I'm one out of five girls, second of five. We were born in Jersey, but raised in Ghana at a young age.
Mhm.
Although we were born in Jersey, my parents sent us to Ghana and we were raised by our grandmother and our aunts, it was our community. And so early on, we were rooted in culture, we were rooted in history, we were rooted in the power of our being. There's nothing like being on the motherland and understanding your origin. And so that was a very, I think, significant foundation that we didn't really appreciate until my sister, until we grew up. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later on in the podcast. And so when I came back to the US, I actually had to learn English as a second language, ESL, and
Mm.
navigating a lot of the challenges there in school. But we grew up in a very, very loving, big African family.
Mhm.
I always say that my sisters and I, like, we've always had a posse. You know what I mean? Like, if you invite one, maybe you're inviting all of us. Okay, we roll deep out here in these streets, and we're still the same till this day. But my mom and my dad had always told us that my sisters and I, they instilled in us early on that, and I'm probably not saying it the same way, but essentially the essence was this is all you have. We are each other's best friends. We are each
Yeah.
other's accountability partners and so forth. And so we grew up in this loving family. But it wasn't until I started pursuing entrepreneurship that I learned some of the deep history of my family. So my mother recently told me that my great grandmother, who's from Ghana, actually migrated to Nigeria during a challenging time economically, I think, in Ghana and in Nigeria. And she actually started and ran a bakery enterprise.
Wow.
So in Kanu, Nigeria. And so she was responsible for employing tons and tons of people out of Nigeria. In fact, a lot of Ghanaians that had also migrated to Nigeria, she was responsible for employing them in her baking enterprise, building food companies and mobilizing employment. And I thought, like, oh my goodness, I always say things happen in the spirit before they happen in the physical. And so that spirit, I think, lives on. And then my father, he was a merchant marine. So he's traveled the world on the ship. And that spirit of like global expansion, I think, stems from a lot of the work that he did early on. And so we are like culminations of so many people
Mm.
lived experiences. And I think when I think now as the work that I do in digital diplomacy and entrepreneurship, I stand on the shoulders of all these people.
I love that. I love that you know so much of your history and your foundation, and it really does something, like, it really inspires you to keep the torch running and to pass it on to the next generation. I found out that my great-grandmother also was an entrepreneur, and during, the 20s when Harlem was, coming up for Blacks, and she owned, like, a juke joint,
Yeah,
and she would rent it out to different artists, and they would play jazz and things like that.
love that.
Yeah, and when I learned that, I was like, "Wow, a woman during that time, a Black woman," and she did all of that, and from that money, she bought a house in Jersey, my grandmother bought a house, and, like, and knowing that makes me so proud that I can pass that torch on, and now I'm like, "Oh, it's in my blood." So, I love that you know that history, and it's something that you're aware is, like, your foundation.
Yeah, it's a blueprint. And I think if it's a blueprint, I see everything as blueprints. And so just like understanding and knowing their history provides you some guidelines or pathway on how to move forward and to, maybe do it even better for the next generation. So, yeah, once I started digging deep as to like, what is this unction that I have in me that just
Mhm.
naturally unction to build businesses and to grow and to scale and economic development? Like it came from somewhere. Like, what spirit is this? And yeah, just being able to have people today to tell me the history of back then is just, it's beautiful for sure.
And by the way, I love Ghana. I don't know, I didn't say this beforehand, but I went to Ghana with one of my best friends, Aaliyah, my line sister. We went for, like, 2 or 3 months, and we stayed, and
Wow.
we loved it. Yeah, this was, like, oh my gosh, like, maybe 12, 13 years ago at this point, but, the culture is so beautiful, the people, like, we didn't wanna leave. We didn't
100%.
wanna leave.
That's usually the case. I mean, I feel honestly, whether it's Ghana or another country in Africa, I mean, you just land on the continent, you feel the breath of the air or
Mhm.
it's just if you didn't know your power back then, baby, you just go land in Africa somewhere. You're gonna be quickly, okay? I'm glad you had a positive experience. That's it's
I wanna go back, definitely, I wanna bring my girls, for sure. So, now you are the founder of not 1, but 2 incredible companies in 2 different industries. So you have the VGC Group and you have the Mushroom Angel Company. What inspired you to start each of them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm co-founder of VGC Group, which is a virtual global consulting group with my good and amazing sister in Christ, woman of God, entrepreneur, Dr. Naomi Jordan Cook. And so we're actually getting ready to celebrate a decade in business together. And for me, it
Amazing.
really started post graduation of my master's program. You know, after securing a full tuition scholarship to Seton Hall University, not once but twice, and being able to finish all 3 degrees, my undergraduate and 2 of my masters, I found myself like most people today at the bottom of the total pool, unemployed. And I was so challenged that I had done everything according to what my mentors had said. I did everything by the book,
Yep.
9 plus internships, or grades, dean's list. I mean, everything by the book, and still found myself at the bottom of the totem pole. And so after maybe like 50 rejection letters with my daughter on my hip, I said to myself, I was like, if they won't hire me, I will hire myself. And that was the decree and the declaration that began to create a world of entrepreneurship for me. Because although I was dabbling with entrepreneurship. I didn't necessarily think that it was the pathway forward. I had my eyes set on securing a job at the United Nations and moving into diplomacy and working across the
Hmm.
continent of Africa, writing policies. And I thought that was going to be my pathway. And in a full circle, I am working on a lot of that now, but through a private sector engagement. And so it was my husband, after I graduated my master's, had said, you should consider being the assistant of Naomi. And so Naomi is the daughter of our archbishop. And my husband at the time was working with our archbishop closely. Naomi was looking for an assistant. And so I started assisting Naomi. And a few months later, she literally said to me, she was like, girl, you too good to be my assistant. Like, we should go into business together. And I
Wow.
was like, "What? Should we do business together?" And so we literally, I remember like it was yesterday. We took a piece of paper and literally wrote like a contract. Girl, I think it was so unlegit. We took a contract, so not legit.
I love it.
Took a piece of paper and basically said that we were going to go into business together. And at that time, she had already had a company called Virtual Global Consultant, and she was working under her LLC. And I was like, well, let's just put group. Let's just put Virtual Global Consulting Group, and let's call ourselves the VGC Group, and let's come together in partnership. And so that was the launch of the VGC Group in 2016. It was through there we started securing contracts. And I remember like our first, we know what we're doing. Our first few contracts were like a couple $100s. And our husbands looked at each other like, are y'all trying to eat? How are y'all charging just a few $100s? Are y'all trying to eat? You got kids, you got a household. That's not gonna work. So we went back to the drawing board, and I remember we secured our first one of our first contracts. We secured with like $4,000 a month. And it was like the perfect blend of what we do because that particular client was actually based in Ghana and was looking to expand his service offering into the US. And so because I had a Ghanaian background, I could speak the language, Naomi knew tech as well. It was a perfect first case study for our
Yeah.
company to use technology to help that particular organization expand. And I think that first year we had raised, I think through our tech work and our marketing, I think we had raised them over $100,000
Wow.
sales and donations. And that's when we knew, like, okay, we know what we're doing. We know
Yeah.
what we're doing. And that was the launch of the VGC group. It was through unemployment, honestly. It's just, and
That's how, honestly, I've interviewed so many women at this point, and that is a very common starting point.
mhm,
It's like unemployment. It's like we will figure it out when we have to figure it out. And oftentimes it's in the darkest moments that something so beautiful is born. And so I always like to encourage, especially like my clients when they're going through these huge turning points. There is something that can be birth here. Like, look at what you're going through
yes.
and create what you are trying to create from it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I have this principle that I use as a North Star is that there's nothing to find in life, but there's everything to create. The minute you start, like, you don't find a husband, you find a man and you create a husband. You don't find a woman, you find a wife, you find a woman and create a wife. Like, it's a creation. You don't find your career, you find a job and create a career out of it. I think if we can have that paradigm shift as we pursue life and our purpose, knowing that everything that you desire must be created, then you will always have the power and the posture to create the pathway of purpose in your life. And so I spent months looking to find, a career or find, career. And I was like, no, there's nothing to find. You actually have to create it. Everything has to be created. And the
Wow.
exciting thing about it is like 7 years into business, our company got contracted with the United Nations. And so now I literally serve as a senior international consultant for the United Nations through my company, which has always been something I've wanted to do. But it was because it was created. I realized I had to create the opportunity and not find it anywhere. And that
Stop
was
it.
a paradigm shift. Yeah.
I love that full circle moment. Wow, that is
Yeah.
so powerful, and thank you for that principle. I love that. I love that. So let's talk about courage. What did it take for you to move from idea to execution in both industries?
You know, I'd be remiss not to talk about the foundation in faith and grounded in faith, which is
Mhm.
really the spirit that leads everything. I think as a believer, your conviction comes from hearing the Lord. And I'm at the point in my life where I want to have first time obedience. I want to be obedient immediately, not 10 years down the line when he gave me an idea to push into the market and things of that nature. But I think what drives my courage, honestly, is something that my archbishop said. I mean, a lot of things drive my courage, but he said something to me that has been so catalytic. He said, everyone has a birth date. Nobody knows their end date, but that dash on the tombstone, that's the dash of life. And you're in that dash of life right now. And so I think about that constantly and daily. Like, this is the dash of life. I don't have time to think or consider if I'm going to do something or not. I'm going to just do it because it's
Mm.
the dash of life. I don't know when that end date is coming. And that really, I think, catapults a lot of the action that I take. And then just true conviction in the on the assignment. Like, when I hear God, it's um, the conviction to respond to the assignment. And that's what kind of creates the courage. So I do a lot of reading. I read a lot of books. I'm always reading at least 2 books at a time. One that guides my spiritual growth and one that provides hard skills in any particular sector that I want to master. So whether it's finance or technology, etc., I'm constantly reading. And that's what really, I think, keeps courage and strength and possibility, at the forefront of this journey.
Was there like a particular moment where you realized that everything was bigger than you and it was more of a calling?
Yeah, I mean, you have so many of these kind of divine moments and these divine interventions that have you to sit down. I will say that I've always felt growing up, could be me, I've always felt that I was different. I've always felt that I just think different, I move different. Um, I just always felt that I had this real direct connection to God and could hear, and not just hear, but I was committed to responding, kind of divine interventions, all the time. Like, even for example, unemployment. Like, I believe that was divinely orchestrated so that I could move into. So I heard, for example, like, I knew that I'd be working with the United Nations. I just didn't know how, but I've always known that was a body, an international body that I would engage with. But in practice, people only talk to you about kind of this one linear pathway of engagement.
Yeah.
But God had been showing me that there are other pathways of engagement, and there's even more powerful pathways of engagement, and that is from the private sector stakeholder, not necessarily getting a job directly in the organization, but actually having your own entity and contracting with the organization gives you more power and posture in the marketplace. And so I think that's often what happens is I see and hear these divine interventions. I don't always know how. I have this other saying that the vision is clear, but the journey is always blurry. And so I just keep the vision, and then I allow God to allow his word to be a light or a lamp onto my feet and my pathway. And that allows me to kind of make the divine connections throughout the journey.
What is some or what is the most surprising lesson that you've learned since launching your businesses?
I mean, God will call the unqualified. Like, he will really call the unqualified. I mean, like the Mushroom Angel company, for example. So we know the virtual global consulting group that was catapulted through like entrepreneurship and kind of God allowing these doors to close so that we can learn the lesson of there's nothing to find but everything to create. Cool. Got the lesson about 8 years or 7 years deep into that business. The Mushroom Angel company started differently. Now, that is co-founded with my husband, Dominique Cruz, my co-founder, and also the CFO of the company. Kind of blindsided by that. Never imagined that I would be in the food manufacturing industry,
Mhm.
but was always clear about economic development, um, as the focus of much of what I do and what I work. And so the way the Much Major Company launched was at the onset of the pandemic. My husband and I were on a Daniel's fast. It's a typical fast that you have, and for some of believers, we remove meat, sugars, and things from our diet. We use it to pray and kind of petition and just realign ourselves in the Word. This fast was supposed to be for 21 days, and on the 21st day, my husband says he heard God say that we should extend the fast.
Mm.
And, I'm a little challenged. I'm a little challenged by it because I'm like, at that, we were eating fish. We enjoyed fish. I didn't eat meat, but we were eating fish. And I was so challenged because I was getting ready to go back to Africa, to Uganda and Malawi with my partner, Dr. Naomi Jordan Cook, to go do some of our tech work on the continent. And when you're on the continent, baby, you eat you some fresh fish.
Mhm.
but you are at these restaurants, you enjoy some good fresh food. And so I was so challenged when he told me we had to extend it because I'm like, what am I gonna eat when I'm on
Yeah.
vacation? How's that gonna look like?
Yeah.
And and then I'm just kind of like, all these years, you don't miss some of his words. Now you have accurate hearing. I'm confused. I'm just like, how you got accurate hearing all of a sudden? Like, what? And it was it for you? Was it for all of us? Like, I'm just challenged. Okay, I'm just challenged. And so I was like, Lord, I said, Lord, 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 with my heart. And the one thing about my husband is like, I may not always understand what you say, but I trust the God you serve. So if you said that God said this, then
Mhm.
I'm gonna be obedient. So I was on this fast, and I was in Malawi, and I remember my partner, Dr. Naomi Jordan Cook, was like, girl, you think I can eat some fish? Like, I don't know if Dom was really accurate about this fast. And she's like, girl, I don't want no smoke. Okay, I don't need you calling me. Go about your business, eat some salad and some potatoes and call it a day. Okay, until you're off your little fast. And I was like, Lord. So I'm in Malawi and I'm looking at the menu because I'm determined to eat like different things. And so in Malawi, to my surprise, there's this chickpea meatball on the menu. And I'm like, meatball, but made from beans, not meat. Ooh, let me taste curry meatball. Let me try this. And it was so good. I was not privy to like a plant-based lifestyle. I'd never really been involved in, plant-based lifestyle. And so I had this chickpea, and me and the chef, we became friends over that week. And so he turned it into a burger for me. So I was eating like bean burgers and all these things. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm on my fast. I'm not having meat. This is wonderful. So I get back to the US and I'm so inspired. Like, babe, you know about that fast? We can do this. We can do this. We can have this. So I'm like, let me try to recreate what I was eating in Malawi. And I am not a cook. You don't usually associate my name with cooking. Like that's tech and maybe business, but cooking, they be like, no, don't let her cook. Don't let her cook. I'm better now. I'm much better now. I'm real good now. I'm involved now. So I get back to the States and I try to recreate this burger. And I guess my husband had mushrooms in the fridge. So I just used mushrooms because at the time I didn't need to eat mushrooms. So I just used it for him. And he was like, this is so good. I was like, I don't need you to do all that. Like, you don't even gotta suit me up. Like, you don't even gotta suit me up. We 8 years married. You don't gotta suit me up. I don't. And he's like, no, no, this is really good. Let's take it to market. I said, you said what now? Take it to who? He said, no, I heard God say we should take it to market. I said, there we go again. You and hearing. Okay. And so he gets to work and he finds this product center at Michigan State University. They take our recipe, we get everything situated, and we start selling at the market. And 4 years later, we're now selling in 6 states. We're in
God.
restaurants and we're scaling and we're building and we're growing. And I say that to say is like, what has taken me by surprise? Maybe the assignments have taken me by surprise. And I'm just like, Lord, have mercy, because I would have never expected that we would be in the food business. But when God speaks, like we're just so convicted and we just do it. And he's been blessing the journey along the way. And what can we do but continue to be, to be obedient. So now we're here, we're spreading the good gospel, which just means good news. So spreading the good news of mushrooms. And yes,
Mm,
we are feeding you mushroom-based products, but ultimately the message and the ministry of the company is that there's mushroom for you. No matter how small your dreams are, no matter where you come from, meat lover, vegetarian, vegan, or flexitarian, baby, I don't care who you are, what you do represent. There's mushroom for you. And that is the message of the Mushroom Angel Company.
First of all, I need some of that food because I am plant-based. I mean, I eat fish,
Okay.
but mostly plant-based. And
Yeah.
so where can we find your food? Because I definitely want to try some.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we're available in stores within 6 states here in the Midwest. So, like Michigan, Ohio, Indiana,
Mm,
Illinois, Wisconsin, and I think
mm,
Kentucky's on the list. I'm at Meyer. But one of the best ways is to just order online at the Mushroom Angel Company. And so it takes about 10 to 12 days for us to process your order, but we ship next day air because it's frozen. And that's the only and best way to get it to you. But once it arrives within 24 hours of shipment, you just refreeze it if you want to cook from frozen, and then you cook it. It takes about 12 minutes to cook. Yes.
incredible, incredible. And it's such a great idea. So my husband, like you, I'm not the cook in my house. I mean, I'm sure you're much better than me since you're in the industry, but my husband is the chef. Everybody knows that, all our friends know it. And so he like they'll come over and he has just like so much fun cooking for them. And For me, he cooks a lot of mushroom as a substitute meat.
Not
I understand exactly what you're saying. It's surprisingly very good, and it because it's, like, meaty,
yes.
and it takes on flavor, like, it's perfect for plant-based people,
It's
definitely.
amazing. Like, I turn them into nuggets. Like, I'll make chicken, like fried chicken with it. I'll batter it the way we would if it was a chicken or fish. And no, I mean, it's so versatile. It's so versatile. So,
How did your children take the news? Because I love seeing I saw, like, a picture or a video of you bringing them to the market, to a grocery store, and showing them the products on the shelf. What was that moment like for you?
my goodness, like my children, their consciousness is on another level. I mean,
Mm,
and it's on another level. You know what I mean? Like when we used to go to the grocery store back in the day, you weren't thinking like, oh, is it possible for me to create a product and have it on the shelf and have someone buy it? You're not thinking, you're just thinking that you're going to buy a product. But my children, when they walk into a grocery store, honey, they know like half the owners of the brands. Like, oh, mom, isn't this your friend, Mr. Mark? Or, oh, daddy, isn't this your buddy that we were with here? Like, it's a different immersion for them.
oh,
And they love when, their friends were like, yeah, we went to the store and we saw your products in the store and we bought your products. It's a different immersion and it makes them realize, the accessibility to creating whatever it is that you desire. We have this thing in our house that everyone, what is the saying? And everyone puts in sweat equity, like sweat equity. Everyone put in their sweat equity. So everybody gonna work. I don't care how old
yeah,
you are. Bring your
yes.
you go ahead, go and pick up the paper from the printer. And you be in a marketing photo, baby. Everyone gonna put in their sweat equity. Everybody, but
Earn your keep.
earn your keys, earn your keys. They're like, oh, do we get my friends at school get money for chores? Baby, chores, honey, that's your keep. To have you
Yeah,
a warm house and a bed in this room, you don't get no money for chores. You can earn if you work in the business. All right, like that's how. So go ahead and tape them boxes. Pick up the phone call. They do it all, and what we love is just like showing them the power of creation. And they've been with us from the start. They know
yeah.
we're never in the food business, so they've seen it from the beginning. They've been with us. We have long nights, early mornings. They go to the food shows. They're with us. But I always tell them that my husband and I always tell them that their work is not in vain. That they're gonna reap what things.
Any moments of self-doubt or burnout? And if so, how have you navigated them?
I'm at burnout all the time. Burnout is very real when you are a high performer, when you're really committed to execution and no excuses. And so it's a dance. It's a dance. Sometimes, you're dancing jazz, other times you're ballet. It's such a dance. And I think the first thing that you have to do is give yourself grace, recognize the triggers that create these experiences that are not healthy for you. And so my husband keeps me very accountable about resets. I've also learned how to manage my schedule better. Like earlier this week, I was burnt out. I physically got sick because there was just so much to execute on, and I was executing on everything at a high level. But then the negative effect of that is that it took hold of my body. So the first thing I did was call my online manager. I said, clear every meeting off my schedule and push them to the last 2 weeks of October, except for the ones that there was a few that I was like, no, I'm going to push through and get done this week. And so you learn quickly how to shift your consciousness and your mode of operation when you realize how negatively impacting some of your behaviors are to the larger goal and larger assignment. It's like nothing will actually happen if I'm not physically healthy. And so that has shifted a lot. So I've learned too that the journey is the reward. So I'm no longer racing
Mm,
or anything, and the whole thing about FOMO, fear of missing out, it is such a myth. That was a big paradigm shift that has helped me to deal with burnout. Like there is no FOMO. Why? Because there's opportunities are only created when you show up. So maybe if you're not there, there's no opportunity to miss because you're not creating it. You're not there to create it. And so FOMO is such a lie. It tells you that you're missing opportunities that are being created outside of you. But if you believe in the principle, there's nothing to find but everything to create, then you know that there is nothing. So if I don't show up, there's nothing for me to create to live into. So it's okay. You're not missing out on anything. That paradigm shift is what has allowed me to really navigate burnout.
Wow.
Yeah, navigate
So
burnout.
refreshing to hear this. And it's funny, it's like I have these conversations with clients like day in and day out, but it's another thing to actually you have to practice what you preach, right? And so like you, like I'm a high performer, I go at 100 all the time. I get up at 4 a.m., do all these things. And then when I start to crash and burn, it's like, okay, are you making time for rest? Like, are
Yeah.
you actually practicing what you're preaching? You preach
Yes.
self-care, but are you being kind to yourself? And
Yeah.
it's very hard when you wear a lot of hats in different roles, especially as a mother and a wife and, sister, friend, daughter, like all these different things, business owner. It's like you really do have to prioritize rest because
Yeah.
even in rest, that's where I think a lot of my creativity comes from. Like I need to be still in order to even hear like my next moves anyway. So, yeah,
100%. It
yeah.
really, all of these things, burnout, courage, pursuit of purpose, this is really a consciousness. It's a
Yeah.
consciousness. And once you acquire these consciousnesses and use them as your North Stars, so I always say, I live by principle and I practice principles because they create the pathway to a purpose driven life. And so I'm always honing in on principles, and like a big principle that has helped me shift the way I show up, the things I say yes to and the things I say no to. I think people have misaligned or misidentified or misdescribed like popularity versus permanency. So what
Mm,
creates now often is that people pursue things that create what they believe popularity, when really your effort and your energy should go to things that create permanency. And
yes.
once I made that distinction, I started to only do things that I know create a blueprint so that in my absence, my presence is still felt. Anything else is a waste of time. And so you start looking at invitations to speak, you start looking at events that you're going through, you start looking at what calls you're taking or not. You're like, what bucket does that fit in? Is that popularity or is that permanency? Am I showing up because I want to be seen for popularity and I want to align myself? Or is that really creating permanency in my assignment here on earth? That
Mm,
absolutely mitigated burnout, because burnout, then you extend yourself in popularity versus permanency. That has been the biggest conscious shift from when I went from the age of 34 to 35. And so that's probably been the last year. And that has definitely helped create pathways for a more purpose driven life that creates a blueprint. I mean, ultimately, we all should be pursuing a life that in our absence, our presence is felt, right? So
mm,
that for generations to come, your legacy is still helping the next, generation to live into their purpose and goals. And so um I really I don't engage in anything anymore that is really for popularity and not permanency. So you won't see me at every event. You won't see, I don't care how big it is, I don't care who's there. If it
mm.
does not fit the bucket of permanency, I'm not gonna be visible.
Oh, thank you for that. I felt that message in my soul. That is yes, yes, yes to everything you just said. Yes. And it is real. I think that social media will give you that FOMO-ness, right? Like, especially even if you're just trying to run your business, it's kind of like there's always new things popping up. There's always, are you posting on social media enough? Are you visible? All these different things that you feel like you need to do, but really it's taking you out of alignment because you're not really focusing on what your soul is calling you to do. It's
Yeah,
more about appearance and keeping up.
yeah.
So,
Because it's the heightened conversation at that moment. It's the popular thing to do in that moment, but oftentimes it doesn't help create a pathway to your purpose-driven life. So you got to ask yourself, like, who am I assigned to? Everyone is assigned to disciple a group of people. Like, be very clear about who you're discipling and who you're assigned to. Just make sure they align. And I'm getting better and better at that
yes.
clarity, and it's helping with burnout. It's absolutely helping with burnout.
Well, I
Absolutely.
know I know that this conversation will help many other women with burnout because it's definitely it's a never-ending conversation that I'm always having with people. So, thank you for that. So for women who want to break into being a female founder, what I should say who want to do their own thing and be in their own lane, what's some of the first steps that you'd recommend?
Yeah, no, look, the first thing, honey, is that you got to bloom where you're planted. Like, understand what's in your hands. Bloom
Mm,
where you are planted. What stops people from starting is because they're not really clear about what they have in their hands. When you start using what is within your reach and your resources to create a future that you're looking to live into, it's the most powerful position to be in. Oftentimes, I find with entrepreneurship, people think they got to go and get this thing, they got to go and get that. They need this other cert, they need this connection, they need this. And it's like, baby girl, like, bloom where you are planted first. And then the miracles happen when you're in motion, right?
mhm.
It you start addressing the micro tasks that compound over time to create this macro effect. And next thing you know, you're like, oh my goodness, you're winning these pitches, these competitions, you're doing it. So it's like bloom where you're planted, use what's in your hands is one of my biggest words of wisdom to anyone that's looking to get started. Because
Mm.
for whatever reason, we have this notion of looking outside of ourselves first as the first form of engaging. It's like, no, you actually have to look within. You have to look within and see what you have and then work from there and then build from there. And then once you do that, it's very important. Like, you know, you can't speak to someone's shoes you haven't walked. And so oftentimes when you're trying to create a pathway forward, it's very important that you lend your ear to someone's voice that can guide you. That can guide you. That can be a light on your pathway. And so it's very, very important. I stand on the shoulders of so many people, so many people. I am not here by my own doing. And so getting started, you really want to um, test the spirit and the heart of people that you're engaging with. But ultimately, you need an advisor. You absolutely
Yes. Yes.
need an advisor. You need support because the industry, the marketplace, there's so many people, it's oversaturated with so many voices, and it's very difficult as a new baby to distinguish noise from sound. And most people are in the matrix of noise and not in the miracles of a sound, like a sound that resonates with their spirit, their alignment, their calling. They're in the matrix of noise. And it's very difficult when you get started in business to differentiate noise from sound. So I think
Right.
lending your ear to someone's voice that can guide you is very, very key. Those are the initial steps. And then there's tons of books, right? There's so many books.
What are some books that you would recommend or that have been key in, your journey?
Oh my God, say less. I got them all right here. Okay, here's one book. Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone.
Mm,
So I am a lecturer at U of M, and I make sure I teach a course on entrepreneurial thinking. I was asked to teach a course on entrepreneurial thinking, and I was like, say less, okay? I will teach about consciousness. This right here is very important. You need to know that everything in life is a sale and everything you want is a commission. So Grant Cardone, make sure you're reading Grant Cardone. If you want to also read The Psychology of Money, okay, by
yeah,
Morgan Housel, Psychology
yeah.
of Money, expand your consciousness around certain things. You want to read The Millionaire Next Door,
Uh-huh.
very important. When you're an entrepreneur early on, no one really tells you about. Everyone focuses on cash flow, how to increase cash flow, how to transact in the marketplace to increase cash flow. But that's like one step. You have to, once you know entrepreneurship, you also have to create the structures to create wealth preservation. And that's something I've been focusing in on now that I'm a decade into entrepreneurship. So a book that I'm reading is The Ground Rules by Warren Buffett. Well, like, it's by Jeremy Miller, but it's on Warren Buffett's ground rules. So very key. If you want a book that helps you with financial automation as an entrepreneur, because this is something that when you're in corporate, when you're in business, no, when you're in corporate, these structures are created for you. So you kind of just
Right.
walk in and you do it. But as an
Yes.
entrepreneur, you have to build these structures
The
yourself.
systems, yep.
System. So you want to read a book that's really good. I Will Teach You to Be Rich is a
Oh,
good
I've
one.
heard. Yeah.
Ramit Sethi, really good. They have one for couples as well. So if you're an entrepreneur family, my husband, read that. There's a ton of books. There's the 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. There's a book on my bookshelf called Never Split the Difference by Chris
Yes,
Voss.
I've heard of that one.
So these are just some of the books, but there are tons and tons of books, and there's
Yeah. Yes, I will say reading every day has changed my life as well, especially in business. I do 10 pages a day, and the way that I get through, I mean, all the books that I have on my bookshelf, sometimes I look and I'm like, wow, I read all those in like how many months? And that has been such a game changer. It's such an understated activity. It
Most
really, really is.
most people won't do it. And so
No,
the probability of you being more successful in executing is higher because the probability of people who are actually reading and applying is
yes.
0 to none, right?
Absolutely. It's been such a game changer, and honestly, like you're saying, creating systems, I had to create that into just my daily routine because I saw how game changing it was, and now it's just a part of my early morning routine, like read 10
4
pages.
to 6 is what I
So
read, 4 to 6.
yeah, there we go. Yeah, and a lot of entrepreneurs like that are really successful, they do wake up early, I've noticed. That's why I started doing it too. Yeah,
No,
and it could be a
something
big
happens between 4 to 6. I've been a little off the last week. 4 to 6 is when I read. I read, like I said earlier, I read a book that guides my spiritual journey. So like I'm reading a book called The Garden Within, right now, where the war with your emotion ends. And so I'll read a chapter here, but then I'll read a chapter in one of my technical hard skill books. So it takes me about 2 hours to get through everything. And then I journal to
yeah.
document the evolution, but that compounds over time. Those micro actions compound over time, and you realize you're moving into your macro dream. It's
Yes.
the power of compounding.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I will be writing those books down. So thank you. And so we're coming up into the last question. I could talk to you forever, but I know you have a busy schedule. What does hustle mindfully mean to you?
It's a good question. Hustle mindfully means to me, anything that deals with action for me brings me to my number one life motto. I live by this, and this is what creates hustle or hustle mentality, whatever. And that is simply to always live at the level of your consciousness and never at the level of your circumstances. The truth is, circumstantially, we're always slaying demons. We're always extinguishing fires. We're always wiping tears. Anytime you are high on vision and you come back to your normal reality, resistance persists because the enemy of progress is familiarity. So you're constantly fighting against these familiar habits and ways that keep you stuck. And so when I think about hustle mindset, when I think about, go getter, when I think about it's someone who is committed to constantly living in their consciousness so that they can take action around their life's goals and their dreams and their vision. And so I always live at the level of my consciousness and never at the level of my circumstances.
Mm,
I had someone come to me, they're like, "Your life looks so perfect." I said, "Baby, because I show up in my consciousness. Because
mm,
if you came into my house and saw things that I was navigating daily, it's always somebody sick, some unexpected invoice, or something
mm.
broken in the basement, or something. There's always something going on. But the reason why you think my life is perfect is because I live in my consciousness, and that is a sacred place of like execution and no excuses."
Yes, this is definitely something that I will replay. And I cherish this conversation. Thank you so much, seriously. And where can people find you and your companies?
Oh, absolutely. I love to continue the conversation. You can find me. I'm very, very accessible online. You can find me at thediginaldiplomat.com, one of the best places to find me, the culmination of all my work. On there, you'll find links to the Mushroom Angel Company. You'll find links to Virtual Global Consulting Group, and kind of the things that I'm engaging with. Especially like my resources, the books. I write a lot, and so I do encourage those who are interested in this kind of consciousness to, tap into the podcast. I do my best to get it out when I can. The Digital Diplomat podcast. But I write a lot on my LinkedIn, I write on my blog. I do my best to create blueprints that people like you who are listening can use to also chart a purpose-driven life. Ultimately, my goal is to mobilize global leaders to live out their life's work. So that's where you can find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Wendy. And I hope that one day you can return and we can have other conversations as we grow and as your company grows. And thank you so much for being here.
Likewise, thank you for the platform. I appreciate it. Thank you for all the work that you're doing to create a space for women to use their voice to make impact.